Welcome, Kirsten. Thanks for jumping on, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Another episode of the Human Spirit Podcast. Would you like to start off just by introducing yourself and just where you're at, what you're doing, and how you ended up here potentially?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Kirsten Herangi. We met a year ago, and it was just really good to see the path that you're on, and also feel like it's a bit like-minded to what I've been doing for many years. At the moment I work a mix of large corporate organisations and change culture and work on people's strategies. I call it human potential, but that isn't sort of everything about me. Like my whole life I've really been devoted to spirit, to different things that we can do to bring about the higher consciousness in people. So it sort of all complements each other, but definitely lately, there's just such a strong focus at the moment on what I call Ascension, and also all the things that we can do to bring about a new earth. So that's probably my main theme.
What would you describe Ascension as?
Ascension, for me, it does sound like it's a bit about going upward, but it's actually becoming higher and higher frequencies. So some people use the word frequency, some people use the word vibration, but moving away from density, which is where we've been for thousands and thousands of years, and moving more into aspects where we're really tapping into our spirit, so our higher self, moving up from what we call 3D, which is very dense, three-dimensional, and moving it to the fifth dimension, which is what a lot of people focus on. And then you can go right up to 12. So it's, what can we do to move into these higher frequencies?
Yeah.
But for the purpose of actually having more love, more peace, more joy, more skills, more mastery, more amazing talents, and even, who knows, shape-shifting. We can do a lot of things when we move into that realm.
And so you said you've been on this journey for a while. How did this journey start for you?
I feel like everybody has that connection to spirit, so it just depends when it becomes awakened. Probably someone like me, I've been really into it my whole life. So right in my 20s, I just noticed that I was a little bit different. For me, spirit is about being independent and being a free thinker as well. So back in the day, I was really quite conscious of health, and I didn't do the vaccinations myself on my children. I just had a lot of different things that I was doing. I explored lots of different religions, but ultimately it was like I was on a quest to try and find the truth or try and find answers. So it's been a bit of a long journey and lots of amazing things going on.
You said was. Interesting you said was.
Did I?
Yeah, was in the journey. So have you, after exploring different religions and different, aspects of spirituality, have you come to some sort of, maybe not even a conclusion, but maybe a state of peace and content with where you're at spiritually?
Yeah. And I feel it's not just, I become an enlightened, but this is a time where people who really have been committed are really feeling the difference and feeling the change from all that we've gone through. So I'm at a state of mind being at the moment, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Hey?
I love that. I can see it as well.
Yeah.
And feel it. And so when you say people are feeling sort of change, could you maybe describe what kind of feelings, and if someone, is, slowly tapping into this part of themselves, what's that like in the early stages, and what's the different types of feelings you might have when changing through this type of process?
Well, I'd say that in our life we make choices. So I'll go right back to the essence of what I feel. We are creator, we are spirit, so we are the original source, and then we wanted to experience creation or something. We wanted to experience and expand, so that's what creation is, everything we see around us, feel. And then from that, we're like a fractal of that. So that fractal wants to go out and have an experience. And so for a period of time, we actually choose to make sure that we are absolutely accepting the way the world is. So it's like people can tell us things and we just go, nah, that's not true. And then at some point something happens where we go, actually, I think there's more to it than this. So that's probably the first sign when you start going, hey, I think there's more to this than what I've been told. And when that happens, slowly things start to shift. And you start going through all the processes of noticing what's going wrong in the world, noticing what you don't like, but then also noticing and trying to find those things that make you feel good. So it's that time. That's probably the time when people are awakening. I've got 2 sons and they're in their 20s and amazing beings, and it's like I could just see they are choosing to have their cool life of experiences. You know, they also have some bad experiences, but they want it. Like we all want it. We don't want to have, something else say, you have to live in a certain way. So especially, when you're in your 20s, you start to question things then. But before that, you're really having a good time enjoying everything this world has to offer and giving it a go.
Because I have a similar a very similar belief with that, like being source and then being fractal and being human here. How did you come to that sort of realization yourself? And why do you think that it's kind of hard to get to for so many people earlier? Do you think that's a part of like the natural process and something that comes about naturally, or do you feel like it's something that you have to seek and kind of practice as well?
I feel like what's happened for the last many centuries is that, well, we had 2 choices. We could be self, which is creator or spirit. We could be self-serving self. So we're really just having an individual experience. We're feeling really separate. Where it's all about me. It's all about what can I achieve in this world of lots of money and things and power and status. Or we could be self-serving the greater selves. Like some people call it the greater good. So when we're on the self-serving self, life tends to be quite hard because we haven't got that inner peace. So that might be enough to wake us up. Or after a while we realise, it's dog eat dog because the people we're hanging out with are really only serving themselves. They might be nice to us if they're above us, wanting us to serve them. It's all a very, not a very nice place to be. So for me, that's actually the narrative that's been playing out for centuries. It's been those types of people, spirit, who have just chosen that as the path because it gives a buzz. When you get a new car or you get a new job or you get $1 million, you feel something really strong. When you have power over, you get that sort of buzz. There's a lot of quite narcissistic and negative, strong emotional feelings of victory that one can get along that path, which makes them feel like they're succeeding. But ultimately, when we realise that self-serving the greater selves, so you're still really looking after yourself, you're looking after love, self-love, but you're also really conscious of the impact that you're having on everyone around you as well as the earth. So you'll start to notice the difference between the two. So that's a good indicator, I find, of people. And there's a lot of people who like serving the greater good, but yet they are, they've got trauma and they've got triggers, and they're in defense. So if someone is nasty to them, they could retaliate with aggression. So it might look like they're very selfish, but deep down they want to do good, but they're actually got a lot of stuff that they're dealing with.
So you think like having that trauma, having that negativity or negative energy, you being unable to serve, is that?
It's harder because you're like really deep down at an emotional level. You're just trying to look after yourself because
you'd say like
you feel threatened.
Working yourself, obviously healing yourself, and then going out to help. Ideally.
Yeah, so, often people are trying to help others, but yet they can't help themselves, and then it's just a bit of a vicious cycle.
And how one, have you helped yourself, and 2, like how could other people help themselves? What's the kind of steps, the practices, or I know that everything's kind of an option as well. Like so like yoga is a practice for some people. Then some people might be religious, and so there's different avenues to kind of find that by yourself. But I guess what kind of works for you, and what would you recommend as like a staple, like a general sort of thing?
Yeah, probably no staple besides listening to one's intuition. Like the ultimate is just starting to trust ourselves, starting to go, oh, that doesn't feel right. I'm not comfortable with that. Like that's the beginning. And then after a while, it gets stronger and stronger. But generally, you've got the external with lots of temptations and exciting bells and whistles, and then you've got the internal. So I'd say if there was some sort of, one way to do it, it would be start to notice the inner. So start to choose things that are making one feel good. So that could be, like I said, yoga, things like meditation. A lot of people go, I can't meditate because their mind is so busy. But it's about having the ability to be a little bit silent. And then people are going, I don't want to do that because now I'll hear all my voices and my thoughts in my mind. I'd say the easiest thing is nature, because nature is a perfect replication of the natural order of everything. It is spirit. It permeates spirit. It's perpetual, and that's why, for many years I've been really into nature. We lived off grid. We got into bamboo because that was helping save trees, and even bamboo has anions in the air, and there was all these benefits that I found working with nature, and being in nature and running retreats in nature. I'd say nature is probably the first thing that a lot of people naturally do. They'll go to the beach or they go for a bushwalk or something. So if we can get ourselves into nature as much as possible, a lot of amazing things happen. And then, it's about, like, I use the analogy of animals. I've learned to communicate with animals, even nature. But everything in nature transmits and receives. So we just transmit because we've got words. Our words are just so filling our minds, there's no room for receiving. And that's all meditation is. It's an ability to just have a bit more silence. To start letting those thoughts move and focus on one thing. It might be a candle, it might be a mantra, it might be your breath, but it's allowing the mind to just sort of get out of the way so we can start to receive. And when we do, oh my God, amazing things happen. Like, we start to feel a really strong hunch to do something. We feel love. We feel excitement. We feel like we've found an answer. A lot of people are looking for answers. So it's just that ability to get into that state of being. So yoga is really good at that because it's allowing a person to start noticing their breath, and then they start noticing what's happening. So they're putting pressure on themselves, but they're learning to not let that mind take over. Whereas if you do some sort of hardcore training, which I've done in the past when I was younger, you're so focused on achievement versus, serenity and calm and ability to deal with hardship and let go of the mind as one's doing that. But maybe not for you because you're an expert on fitness as well.
I think it's play. Play comes up for me quite a bit. Like, just like whenever you're doing something, like play. And it, like, you could play a serious role. Like, I could play as a CEO. I could play as a musician. Play like in life as well. Like, I think that's the essence of things. And so, like, underlying my philosophy or like even my character, even though I do something, I try to remind myself that it's play. Like, I'm putting on a mask and I'm going out there and don't take it too seriously. Even though I can act serious in that role for a little bit. Like, there's a part of me that knows, like, it's not. It's not all like.
Well, it's all smoke and mirrors. Like the whole 3D, this third dimensional world is actually
the
mostly space and a little bit of matter. Yeah. And it's energy and it's frequency and it's the interactions that are going on.
Yeah. So, I think the word illusion comes from the root word of play as well. The word persona is mask. A lot of these like things I feel like they just kind of elicit that sort of like playful essence. And I think that's the point of a song is not to finish a song, it's to play it. And then we live in a universe and it means it's quite song-like, and I think there's all these clues around that. And I was actually to add your point to nature, like I was listening to Bruce Lipton quite recently. He talks a lot about like how we are receivers as well as transmitters, and our body is designed to receive our unique consciousness. So it's like our consciousness enters that field, which is that space you're talking about, and then being open to receive, like your uniqueness actually speaks through you and to you in your body. So our bodies are designed as like these as these receivers. And it was interesting. You also spoke about how like the body, like in terms of reincarnation. So if you have a new body, it's different to you, but it had your antenna like the information for your receiver or your information, then you get downloaded into a new body. And that's how reincarnation would work. So it's kind of like a television with a channel. So the television is the body, and then the channel is like actually your spirit. And so whenever the right body pops up for that channel, you channel through.
Or you choose an intent. So we've been running retreats. We just finished one in New Zealand. It was called Initiation, and we had it involved with the Māori over there. I'm part Māori. And we had it in a marae, which is a place of Māori culture and tradition. And wow, it's pretty amazing because there's so much about ancestors. So a lot of the modern culture doesn't talk about that. In fact, they shun it and say it's not true. But yet in our culture, we definitely feel our grandparents, once they pass away. And a lot of cultures do. So it's that whole cycle and connection with which is beyond this physical realm. So as you said, coming again into form, and then also knowing that you've got the support of your ancestors. So probably my biggest themes now, after all of my journey and search, is ancient cultures hold a lot of the secrets because they were very one with nature, and then nature. So nature is just already, luckily by default, still okay, Everything else has become a bit artificial, and then there's just been, going back to that idea of self-serving self, there's been an imbalance of people who have been able to go into roles of responsibility, and they're mentally insane. Some a lot of them, because they really are unwell. Mental health, we want to talk about that. Well, there's a lot of people in positions of responsibility that are out of balance, and so they are so defensive to the point that they'll press the button just to make sure they're okay rather than the greater good. So we've just created that for ourselves because of our free will, but I wouldn't say that every person feels like they created that. I feel like most people are really good. Most people are trying to do the right thing, but most people get sucked into the moment the child is born to do it the way that someone says to do it. So that's why the spirituality becomes a game, because it should have been a natural birthright, especially in a culture that's so pristine and loving and kind with elders and kindness, that they really want the best for their children. If that was the case, then the child would be born into an environment where they get support to be their most purest, amazing self. But it's just not the case at the moment. I don't want to go into doomsday because it's so exciting. It's actually changing. That's why when you turn the light on, all you see is a lot of darkness and, dust in the corners and things. That's all we're seeing right now. We've got the light on so bright that we're seeing all the things that just don't work anymore, that are corrupt, that are wrong, So the key is not to get sucked into that, not to think it has power. It used to have power because we believed it. All we were doing was we were believing it.
Yeah, belief is everything. It changes our culture as well. Is there a particular ancient culture that you're actually really into? Is that more about like your heritage, or? I
feel like I've explored Māori. I luckily grew up with a mother who was really Māori. So she also introduced the first Māori culture and language back to the schools as part of the political party that did that. I had really radical sort of ancestors as well as cousins and aunties and uncles. So I explored that. One thing though, Christianity and other things had come in, and there was just a very strong sense of male being higher than female. So yet I knew that our ancient culture, women were valued just as much. So I kept searching. Sequence of events, once you start living your life where you're trusting your intuition, you end up being called to certain places. So I lived in the Cook Islands for a couple of months, and I got to see that the original canoes that Māori people were associated with came, like 7 of the 8 came from Rarotonga, and 1, which is my family line, came from Aitutaki, which is a further island, and also Tahiti. But then I got to meet a genealogy expert, which is called a tumu kōrero, so he's like a shaman, and he chanted to me just history so far back, right to Hawaii. So, that intrigued me. And then I see things like Kon-Tiki. I don't know if you've seen that movie with Thor. That's a replication in the 1940s of some Austrians who were following a raft that was supposedly went from Peru all the way into the Pacific Islands. So that was proved to be true because they gave it a go. And they so there's the migration. Well, I'd say in the last couple of years, being really committed to this because it feels so good to be in spirit.
Yeah.
I'm getting ancient memories. I'm getting what people call the Akashic records. I have already had a lot of my past lives, which I'm not too fussed about because, most of what's happened in the last thousands and thousands of years, I'd say, 10,000, has been warlike, has been self-serving self. And it's been dominated by those small percentage of people where most people have had to put up with that and get a lot of trauma. So in life, we've got to let go of the trauma of our past lives. I've had to help my family lines of 7 generations before me and 7 after. I'm sure now that it's cleared, deal with the alcoholism, for example, that came into a lot of Indigenous cultures like my culture. My great-grandmother was a tohunga, which is a shaman, and she was given that at 9 years old, but then she got there was a suppression act that stopped anyone doing that in New Zealand. So after that, my grandmother became an alcoholic with my grandfather. So it's like we are all dealing with a lot of shit. Yeah. We're dealing with our shit. We're dealing with trauma of many centuries. It sounds big, but it's not that big once you learn some simple techniques, which we can get into. But I would say I've gone right back to the essence of what we were originally, and I call it mu, and many people are feeling this awakening to that. Many of us were from that time, and that's why we're so staunch and strong in this lifetime where nothing's really wavered us to believe things. We, for some reason, thought eating organic food was just like, how could people not? But now it's not about judgment, but it's like there's a lot of us that are like this. So I feel we're actually from the original, and Māori people call it, and the Pacific call it tiki people. So the original man or human. And the original was actually coming from ether and without density. So we were able to just feel what it's like to be a tree. We're able to feel what it's like to be a whale or a dolphin. So this idea of shape-shifting, it makes more sense when you think of beings that were more spirit that came into form, and then after a while they chose to be fully human. Yeah. But like now I can still feel a tree. I can feel a dog. I can talk to them. Like this is a skill that a lot of us have that we've been programmed not to believe is true, and we've also never learned it or never had it activated. So the exciting thing is by going right back to the original human, which wasn't rummaging around, like what they're trying to say who we are. We were very high vibration beings who were one with nature and one with everything, with a lot of love and compassion.
It's kind of like saying the idea of ourselves is that we're not actually a physical form. So it's not identifying with your physical self. Like it's not like I can shapeshift from a human to something. It's more identifying with the spirit of a human that can shapeshift because it's the spirit that enters different things. And so it's like the etheric body. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, it's like, because I kind of imagine it the same way. It's not like me changing. I'm like, people think, oh, he's a shapeshifter. Like, I don't get these magical powers to shapeshift.
Well, you probably could if you become lighter and more.
Oh, sorry, yeah, but my actual physical body doesn't like change, right? There's more like.
People even now we can see like
glows.
Well, I get people and I've seen like you see someone's face change slightly.
Oh yeah.
And you can see their parts. Or you see they take on a persona of a certain animal. Where did they come from? And there's something. It's more like the spiritual vision, seeing another person and going, I've just seen something shift in you, and whether the person felt it or not.
Yeah, it's interesting because actually I can verify that 100% because the last week, I think it was last weekend, I went to a meditation school in Sydney, and they had us like meditating for about, let's say, 20 minutes first, and then we did a couple of meditations where what you do is you meditate on the third eye. You try and open that up by feeling it and tapping into the vibration of where the third eye will be located. And then once you start to resonate with that and start to feel the pulsation of that, you come out of your meditation and then you sit across from someone and look them in the eyes, just dead in the eyes, for about 15 to 20 minutes. And I didn't have this experience. So I was like, how's it going? I was the only person who didn't have it, but it's fine. My sister, my friends as well, who aren't as, I guess they're not as knowledgeable with spiritual stuff, but they just open to exploring it. And I think that's potentially why they're more open. And so they saw like they were looking at someone, saw different faces, saw animals. Like my sister was looking at someone who turned to like 8. I mean, I was looking at someone that had like 1,000 different faces, and like it was just bizarre. And I was like, oh, everyone's tripping out here. Wow. So it was really, really cool to see like, and there was about 25 people, so everyone was saying the same thing. So it's cool. I think it's really, but it's not about, essentially it wasn't about also the visions, it's more about the feeling of things.
Yeah.
And I've heard that a lot recently, with even like past lives, in terms of the practice of it and how you get there, how you remember, isn't through vision, it's through emotion. And then the emotion sparks the experience, the visceral experience. Is that correct? Is that the same thing for you? Like it's,
well, they call it, they're all the clairs. So you've got visual, audio, kinesthetic. Everybody's going to have something different because we're all unique. So it just depends on the person. It's like when I was a facilitator, we would talk about visualization. Some people go, oh, I can't see anything. But it's not visual. It's actually, do you feel something? Do you hear something? So it really depends on the person. So as long as they accept they are unique and they've got their own way in which they perceive things. And so like a tohunga is a Māori word for a shaman. So they use that, in South America, or an oracle. But there's the seer. So my line is more the seer. There's, the healer. There's the herbalist. There's a whole array also, someone who can see dead people and help them to the light. There's many types of skills that we've got, and through the different lifetimes we've had, we can tap into what we were most likely for now, and then we can always develop in a lifetime, some other skills. But at the moment, we have so much we can tap into because we've had so many lives. Not everybody's had as many. I feel like I'm definitely a really old soul, and that's why I chose to come here at this time. I chose to have my soul contract with myself. It's not like someone else made it for me to support this change that's going on, because it's time. We could have gone one way, and after 1987 we could have actually gone the wrong way. We could have blown the earth up, but it's changing, and it's changed. And the people coming through now are like the kids and the children are like amazing. I mean, the only challenge is at the time that this is happening, you've got more vaccinations, more chemicals being put into mothers who are having babies and children. The moment they're born, they're being shoved so many needles and things. So, but the amazing thing is, as a human, is spirit. So we can defy any physical thing. It's going to take maybe a little bit more effort, but there's lots of us who just chose not to go down that path because we're on a mission to do what we're doing. And then there's, some who may, and that's all cool. I feel, and even in the last couple of weeks, there's massive stuff going on. If you look at the solar flares, there's just constant shifts in what's going on with light. So I've been sun gazing for many years, and sun gazing just at the time of sunrise and sunset. Yeah. You get a lot of codes. So if we really accept, because science is saying it now, that everything is frequency, everything is light, everything is vibration. So there's so much supporting us. It's not like we're doing this alone as humans. We've got all of nature, like animals love us, like trees, everything actually wants to evolve into a more loving, higher dimension. So there's a lot that's happening right now that's shifting. I do feel myself that because I've chosen this path, everything is so much lighter. I'm feeling people are so much more loving for me. But then out there in the world, with those who are still trying to hold on to the control and believe it, they're really struggling. So it's making me feel more and more compassion for people at the moment, because of it's like you can take two roads, and the ones who are still trying to hold on to the old thinking it's true, they're really struggling and really in fear. And then, they put on the TV and all of a sudden there's 50,000 things to be fearful about. The thing that keeps people suppressed is fear, is guilt, and is shame. So the key that
really
I've found.
dense vibrations.
Yeah, like for me, the last couple of years has been about letting go of any guilt and shame, because I've done things. I'm not perfect, but that's the programming that's so deep. Sometimes you could just feel guilty that you're supposed to be somewhere else rather than here. Should I be doing that instead of this? Like, it's so deep. But when we free ourselves from that, knowing that we are ever-evolving, expanding spirit beings, and we're not supposed to be perfect. We're actually able to keep experimenting, like, as you said, the child, children's innocence. I could go into that topic. I love the idea. Like, at the moment, my mantras are pure, innocent, wild. Like, that's my focus at the moment. Like, the innocence, the innocence of a child. I've done a lot of research about nature and its benefits to work environments, for example, and people who have curiosity, wonderment, awe, tend to be high achievers and also childlike when you think about it.
Yeah.
And what brings out the most of that is nature. So, like here in Manly Beach, I've been one of the swimmers going around to Shelley Beach and back in the ocean, and you see all of the fish. And you should see these adults. They're all like, what? Oh my God, I just saw the grouper and I saw the something or other.
Yeah.
And it's like the child comes out. And a lot of the people who do that swim, which is 1.6 kilometres, they're like really resilient beings. And a lot of them are very successful in business, for example, because, and I've got one friend who's a CEO of a organisation where he's dealing with so much heavy stuff in the world, but he's the most lightest person I've met. And I feel it's because they've tapped into nature, they've tapped into awe, wonderment, curiosity, they've tapped into their childlike self again.
They play.
They play.
Yeah. They see life as a play, sort of thing, which is very much like what's his name? Shakespeare. Shakespeare was saying that as well. And what I found interesting about the whole frequency of science, you said like, science is catching up and recognizing it. It's like, science has been based off energy and frequency for a very long time. Like, all of that technologies come from pretty much Nikola Tesla. I think it's like 80% of the technology that you see today is somehow linked and correlated to his work because of the AC/DC currents, so alternate and direct currents. As opposed to before, there was just direct currents before he actually came up with the idea. And so that pretty much all of our technology is based off this thing. And his most famous quote was that once people start to see the world in terms of frequency and vibration, will like elevate to another level. And so it's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, science is proving it, but like we've already proven this a very long time ago, and we're just coming to realize it. So I know it can sound woo-woo to people, and that's this thing I'm, I guess, trying to navigate on this podcast in particular, but also just in life in general, is like trying to show people like the science and logic behind spirituality, because I think there's so much logic behind it, and I think it's more logical than the latter. It's just trying to break that lens a little bit to help people see it in that way a bit more and try and connect the dots a bit. And I think that's maybe what you do as well in terms of being a seer. And is that what you mean by you can see the dots between things? And so your role is to help others uncover the dots because you laid a path by connecting them. Is that what you mean?
Wonderful. Thank you. I might read that.
Well, I don't know. That's what
I feel the seer that I've noticed in myself before I knew this was the ability to look at the whole world and see what's happening, really, like the truth. And then go, what caused that? And then go back to, well, what was the belief behind that? So my whole fascination with human potential has been that. But back then I was like trying to find a solution, an external solution, and brought it right back to knowing there's no such thing. It's like whatever. So science-wise, for me, it's the seer is the ability to just trust right at a cellular level that we are like the cell and the universe is like the cell, and that it's like you go back to the core of silence, and then you see the clarity on everything, because everything else, like you said, is an illusion. And it seems true, but it's not, Like the money is, people think they're going to achieve something. They think it's a game and that someone will win. Well, nobody wins. It's just like being in a rat race. You're just constantly chasing something, and then you realize, oh my God, I'm going to lose my health if I keep going this way. But then when you come back, I call it like the implosion versus explosion. So implosion uses the inner, all the energy that you've already got. So that's what a cell does to grow, versus you've got an explosion is where you've got to get an external thing like fuel, fossil fuel, and then that's what fuels your rocket or your aeroplane. And we just can't keep going that way. But yeah, so going back to energy, when you start to, I think I'm losing my train of thought because I've got so many concepts going on in my mind. So you start going, man, if I just shift, okay, here's a practical thing. If I shift how I approach my next meeting, like I have a lot of online meetings, and I set intention to be love and to seek to understand and give more love to everybody at the moment, because, that's the best thing I can do. People are often running around very stressed. And if I could do that, like there's something about my energy shift. Also, if I'm, off track, might have a confrontation with someone, or, something goes really wrong. I suppose the seer is massive, but it's the ability to see what's happening and seeing it for others too.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the key also that they're more than just letting go of guilt, shame, fear, is to let go of judgment. So the construct of the 3D world is to analyze and use the mind only to say this is a table, that's a plant. So that analytical mind is just taken over too much. And so it also judges, it's constantly judging. So I could look at you and say, oh, his hair's long, and whether I like it or not, But ultimately, there's a spirit there, like who cares about everything else? Yeah. Love's most important, spirit's most important. And if I connect to that and see that, then I see the real being.
How do you connect to
that? My dear friend Simon Hollington, who for the last couple of years living back in Sydney, I wanted to just be in nature because I've lived off-grid for 9 years, coming back and getting back into corporate stuff. I was like, well, what am I going to do in the city? So he was running a lot of these bushwalks into ancient sites and the northern beaches of Sydney, and he would always do this meditation that's going from your mind down to your heart. And it took me 2 years, actually. I don't think it would take anyone as long as me. But it just didn't dawn on me that I was so stuck in my head. I kept having all these grandiose ideas of spirituality and nature and solving all the problems of the world, but I was trying to come from it from my analytical mind. And his meditation actually is from the Kogi Mamas. They came from, in South America, they'd been out of society. They'd never been dominated or taken over by colonists. So they came and brought this meditation and said, okay, guys, you all need to do this meditation because you need to get into your heart.
Out in this shit. Yeah.
So now I can do it really quickly and can just make sure my focus is at my mind. It's down where my heart is. Mm-hmm. And then from that heart, I feel light. I can visualize a star, and then I come from that. Mm. I also tap into above and below. So I tap into, Māori call it Ranginui, so Father Sky, and then Papatuanuku, Mother Earth.
Yeah.
So the two brings about the balance of the masculine and the feminine. Mm. And I bring that into my solar plexus, which is the masculine, and my heart, which is the feminine. And then that's my power source, Yeah. And if you go to the 0 point in quantum physics, for me, everything, I'll get into it soon, but the symbol is the first symbol of Mu. It's got the dot in the middle and the circle on the outside. And funnily enough, it's like what we're learning now, 0 point, cell, everything. It's the first symbol of the first
human. Interesting to go down, because I've done a lot of it. I've thought about this recently, actually. Yeah. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, the way things have unfolded for me is I get this like a download. I get 0 point. And I'm like, oh, what's this 0 point? So I Google it, And then I go down the wormhole of what is it? Oh, my God, that 0 point is exactly like that. So the exciting thing about the way of life like this is that everything is like an adventure. Everything is like being a magician. I set an intention 2 years ago, so not this year, but the year before. Pretty much I let go of all beliefs besides anything is possible. And it just allows me to look at things and accept, okay, well, what is this? And not analyze it. But then all of a sudden you get more hunches, you get more proof of things, synchronicities. You go, oh, I'm supposed to read that book because there's a really strong feeling going on at the moment when I see that book. So it's like I feel it's our oversoul, it's our higher self, it's our higher spirit, which is connected to everything, which is keeping an eye on us, and we've just not listened to it. And so it's going, oh, cool, you're listening. Okay, so go left, go right. It's us. It's not something out there.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Like this, and this knowledge has been around for a very long time.
Yeah,
that's the scary thing to me. Like, how has this been around for such a long time? And I'm at the point where I'm not like questioning ancient wisdom. I'm like, how did we lose it? That's my biggest question. Like, how the hell did we lose all this information? Unless it was like literally like 12,000 years ago. And it was way beyond it. It's just like kind of changed for the last like 12,000 years and got wiped out sort of thing. And then we're starting again, potentially. Because, the 0 point, right? So that's, you mentioned it's a circle with a dot in the middle. The alchemical symbol for gold is a circle with a dot in the middle. And the symbol of the sun is also a circle with a dot in the middle. So the sun is and this is where so I'm reading at the moment about quantitative science versus qualitative science. And so that's what we're actually talking about. So quantitative is like numbers, logic, you can measure it sort of thing. And qualitative is like the linguistics, like how does something make you feel? Like, I can't put in numbers how this interaction, how this conversation is, but there's definitely a sensation. I can 100% prove that I feel a certain way. And so the Egyptians spent a lot of time actually trying to develop like tools on how to measure energy, so the subtle energies of things. And so what they found, and what I found, this is how, in terms of ley lines, actually, we can go there as well, was what they were doing was measuring the energy and frequency of the land. And they found that when two rivers crossed over, so like two paths make an X in the middle, it's that center point, again, that 0 point, the center of something, that has a frequency that is the same frequency that the sun emits, that gold emits, and like enlightenment.
Wow.
So what they're trying to do was create monuments and places for people to meditate in, to download information, so they could actually become that center point themselves. And so the goal of spirituality that I was reading was to actually become the center point, to become the center, to become gold, to become the sun, to become enlightened, so that everything that resonates out of you is affected by your goal or by your center. So that was the point of spirituality. And so what was interesting about the monuments was like they're built directly over these ley lines that increase the frequency, and then they would match the pyramid with a star, because it's connecting, as you said, in your body. So in your body you have, like you said, Father Sky, and you said the earth below, and everything's fractal, so as above, as so below, sort of thing. So if you take the principle of up in the skies, there's the mind chakra, or and then you have like the earthly bodies and energy. Then they'll connect the streamline of energy from the pyramid to the star. And so that's why Orion's belt aligns perfectly with the pyramids. And so they were trying to essentially connect the energy flow between things and to do all that stuff. And it's so fascinating, because I know you've done a lot of work with ley lines and song lines and stuff.
At the moment, the whales really gave me a lot of activation, and I met someone who found the same. They came to Australia, and at that time the whales were going up and down the coast of Australia. I moved to North Stradbroke Island. I just went there in October. October, just before we ran a retreat there, and on 11/11. But I just saw all these whales, and I didn't know at that time what was happening. But I was like, I have to move here. So I moved out of Sydney and moved there really quickly. Wow. And then I got to experience the whales. And so we're going to do another retreat when the whales are there. And so I suppose I didn't know fully what was happening. But I had a confirmation from a few people that, yeah, even the ancient cultures say that the whales are so ancient that they've been holding songlines because we've just, especially on land, we've just decimated it, chopped it up and chucked things on top of things. And so, yeah, there's luckily the ocean, which they're trying to, do the seismic stuff underneath, which is terrible. We all have to say no with Greenpeace. Because it's really going to affect the whales, and the whales have been doing these migrations for thousands of years while we've been a bit mucked up on the earth.
Yeah, it's actually this just came to me listening to you then with the whales, like, because we talk about currents, how there's currents in the ocean, and certain animals will jump into a current, and then we watch Nemo, and there's like current.
Yeah, well, that's what it was from. The Kontiki.
Yeah, and so they jump in, they ride the current. And we use energy and electricity as we refer to energy and currents as well. And so what we're talking about, because I guess we're trying to describe ley lines for people and song lines, is that there are like energy grids or currents that actually map over the earth. And so, yeah, maybe like animals are actually so in tune with these currents and frequencies that they naturally align to them. And that's how they're able to navigate themselves around the world, because they're attracted to a certain frequency or vibration and they're just kind of following it. And we've lost that completely.
Well, they say when the floods, the tsunami came to Asia, all the animals ran towards high ground.
And then
humans were like, what's going on? Yeah. So they just know.
Because you work with ley lines and song lines yourself?
It's not a big thing for me. Mine's more human potential and nature. And then definitely lately ancient cultures, the value of the wisdom that they offer. Yeah.
So how about
I'm so technical, but I do try and read a good, strong science quantum book just to get the essence. What happens when you're wearing bare feet. Yeah. I've got the saying on my son's lap because I didn't know anything more than the saying. Are you ready? Yeah. So as you're walking, within 20 minutes, you're going to get free electrons come through your body and annihilate the free radicals. And then they said, so what does that mean? And I'm like, well, sorry, I don't know what else that means, but it sounds really good, and
it does sound
good
cool
to do. So that's probably the level of science that I get to.
It's good. It's one of those tricky things that I'm personally trying to I guess I find it hard. I actually find it hard to read a book. Like, it's not something that comes very easy. But I do enjoy it if I just taken away by the content, because you get stuck in those conversations where you being in the health industry at the moment still, we get asked a lot of questions, and I feel like if I describe something halfway, I'm like, okay, I'm stuck here.
Yeah, you probably need to know.
You need to know some stuff, and because I can't tell someone to go do a barefoot walk, and they're like, even though that's one of the other problems that I do struggle with in terms of our society. It's like, as you would say, intuition's everything. I think so many things we could just use our intuition for, and we didn't need to actually go off and spend years and years and years studying it and trying to prove it, because we're wasting time. And I don't know how much time we have in terms of recovering, restoration of forests, and repairing even our mental health and all of these things. I think intuitively we know exactly what to do, but we're kind of overvaluing science and overvaluing information that we wait so long for it to come in, get it confirmed, which might not even be real anyway.
It takes 20 years for science to catch up with what's going on right now. So
yeah, it's just it's so far behind. Yeah. So I find that really hard. To kind of
I'd say I'm
juggle with.
Feeling in this conversation, you're heading into where I want to head. If you could say anything, the biggest con, the biggest program, the biggest limitation is to feel like you've got to go and find something external to prove something. So a human, we have a really simple gauge, and that is, does it feel good? Does it feel right? And so if we could start using that more, like you said, know, and then pretty much just park anything that's an external piece of information, because there's too much. We can see there's vested interests, there's millions of people who want us to buy that product and say this one's good and that one's good and that one's bad and that one's good. you're going to totally become confused. So I noticed, like with my son going to high school, that they would come back and they would debate everything. So it's an innate skill that people learn by the time they become an adult. And it's like someone just needs to say, like often they'll say to me, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I'm not going to go there. It actually feels really right and really good, and I'm having a great time with it, you know. Yeah. So, and I remember one of them said, oh, yeah, that's a probably better way to do it. Like, because they've got a narrative that they'll do, most people from schooling and university, they'll go, I need to prove it. It's like, how boring is that? Like you said, let's get back to the play. Let's go. Like, I've been a career coach, and you have to, someone has 5 options. You have to say, okay, so how does that one feel? And then how does this one feel? And then you compare the feeling and you go with the one that feels the greatest. And then obviously you still got to have a short-term goal, short-term career pathway to get yourself to the ultimate. That feels so amazing. But we're not teaching this stuff in school. So it's, I would say, the best thing to walk away with to really tap into spirit is to feel it, and then just notice though when you've got fear and let go of that.
And I think to add to that, I think science and logic, my feeling about it is like that is the most logical thing to do. If you were to research like what's the most logical way to make a decision, it would probably say to follow your intuition. If we could quantify that, you know what I mean? Like it's like, so it's like you might as well just use your intuition anyway and just follow that. Because even if bad things happen, it's like there's this sort of relationship that you have, and I can't remember who spoke about it, but essentially when you're pursuing like a certain vision, and your vision is intangible, right? Like I can't see your vision, you can't see my vision, but both of us have visions that we have in our life. So it's intangible, let's say, so you can't measure that. And when we both act upon as if that vision is real, or we have faith and belief that it can come alive, that we can manifest that through our actions and through the way we act in the world, then our actual physiology changes, our mood changes, we get excited more, and so then we can actually quantify how good someone feels based upon how captured they are by their own visions for the world and how good that is. And I think a lot of us need to spend more time in that, which could be meditation. If we give people like, what do I do for meditation? It's like, I actually meditate in the future quite a bit. I have this like saying called like feel the future. It's in my wall in my bedroom. Yeah. Because it's like, it's one thing to think about it, but if you can start to feel what it's like to live that and actually then you just feel happy in the moment. So it's like, I need to wait until I achieve something to feel good about it. You can actually start to manifest it. And then you start to develop this belief that you can do it. And then it starts to like, I guess, snowball over time. And I think, if science is probably saying, science is telling us that through quantum physics, actually. That's what it's actually saying.
I always dip into it, and it always has confirmation, but sometimes it's just a bit slow, so waiting for it. Exactly. It's just too slow for what's going on right now.
It is, and that's a faster way of transmitting information is actually through feeling. Like, like I could feel how this, like, how interaction is going before I could explain to you how I felt about it.
Yeah.
And so funny that even information is downloaded through feeling way faster than it's downloaded through thoughts.
Animals feel it straight away. They feel your fear. I had horses, and so I did all natural horsemanship with them. But they
cool.
Yeah, I've been there everywhere.
Cool yeah.
But they'll feel when you've got fear, and they're not actually going to give you a hard time. They're just like, oh my God, she must see a lion somewhere. Like, oh my God, I'm going to freak out too. And so they get jittery. So they act really strange when we feel an emotion, because they're thinking you must be seeing a predator. So, they do it immediately. Yeah. That's why they're doing a lot of healing with horses. Horse healing is amazing. So I'd say, like, if we were to bypass the last, 12,000 years, say, or at least 2,000, 3,000, and just implode it. That's my version. It's like a wrinkle in time. And then just jump back to feel what it was like when we first were with this higher vibration. Because we've got it. It's already memory. And then we use that, as you said, to focus on the future and see. That's why we've got newearthdreaming.org. It's a collaboration of co-creators. It's not a business. It's not anything. It's just we'll do some stuff together based on this vision of a new earth. And the new earth really is the old earth. It's what we had originally, without the consciousness, I suppose, of when we can go off track and inability to deal with. We haven't even talked about duality, but this world is a world of separation. This table is separate from me, so then that causes us to feel separate. But ultimately, to start visioning more of what we would like to see and feel. That is really exciting. I've done it a lot, and I actually already see it. I have dreams, so part of seeing is to have dreams, and I take them. So I think my son did call it lucid dreaming, like I can continue it on. I wake up at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'll just keep going with it because I'm in that really, what is it, theatre state, really relaxed.
Theta, yeah.
I can feel, I can just notice what's going on, and then it's really exciting. But I've seen. Like I got a bit disheartened because I wanted to create eco-villages. I wanted to create a practical solution for us to return to nature. And so I was doing it, but I was still in my head. And so there was conflict with people. That's the biggest thing that goes on in community. If you've got a whole bunch of people who can't be self-responsible with their triggers and with their emotions, and instead they're blaming everybody for what's going on, then you're never going to really achieve a community. But nowadays I feel we can, because we've got a lot more people conscious, able to take responsibility for the triggers that will come up. But anyway, in the dream, I saw myself as a little girl, and I'm in this cool village, and I'm running around with my mates, and I just see my awesome parents, and I'm feeling so much joy and love. I'm like, living the life, what a cool place that I live, and cool parents. And then I woke up. And I often say, what does this mean? So I get the message from it. And it was like, that's me in the future. So it might not have looked like the eco-village we tried that failed, probably 7 years ago. We might not look like we achieved something while my sons were little. They had a great time, but we didn't, keep living there. But I'm going to be born into a future life of a village that I help seed in the work I do. I mean, how cool is that? Like, it's the future. So, and it seems a bit selfish, but I'm like, I don't even care anymore whether it does or doesn't happen in this lifetime, because I'm going to be able to come back to that type of community and village.
Yeah.
Because I might have just helped create something, even if it's a small thing. And if we can start expanding out our awareness of, what impact we have, it's not just about this little life where we, get a house and a mortgage and hope to pay it off and not give kids debt. Do you know that kids are getting the debt of their parents' debt? Anyway, if we're in a new world,
scratch that.
We're going to create, such different futures, even if we do a very small thing, because we'll be able to benefit from it ourselves if we want.
That's such a good point too. Like, and I think that's one of the biggest things. Like, one of my greatest experiences and most horrific experiences was I was in like this trip where it was about the fear of death, and it was just like I kept living the fear of death. Like I remember it so clearly. Like I was on an island. It was actually
just a dream.
This was not real. Yeah, it was a dream. It was a dream. However, it's so real. Like all these things are like they're probably more real because the information that you get out of it is so strong, and I think it comes from such a prehistoric time or ancient time that it because the fear of death is in everyone. So even just the emotion of fear of death is such a there's knowledge in that, because imagine emotions carry information in them, and so within that fear is one of the most primal fears. And so if you so the dream or the visions was really about that. And so I remember I was on Krusty Island, from the Simpsons. It was animated in the Simpsons sort of stuff as well. And I was on a roller coaster, and the roller coaster was called the Fear of Death. And I remember sitting on this chair, and there was someone next to me, but I couldn't really. They were kind of robotic and not really alive. And I felt like living a live person. So I'm on the roller coaster, and you know when you get to the very end of the roller coaster and it slows down, and so it slowed down, and what would happen was, like, imagine there's three carts in front of you, and so you could see what was going to happen next. You can see what's going to happen to you, right? Because it's so what would happen was like this laser would shoot through, and the people would kind of die, but they didn't die. They just got reset and went on the roller coaster again.
Oh,
And
that sounds
so,
like life.
yeah, and it was fucking scary because at that moment I felt like, holy shit, I'm insane. Like, I'm just going to do this again. And you're aware that you're going to do it again. And so within three carts, it's your turn. You're sitting there, the laser goes through, you wake back up and you're on the roller coaster again. And then and then I was just like going through this and I thought, oh my God, I am like some sort of psychosis. Am I going to get out of this thing? It was really scary.
Well, that's been the last few centuries.
Yeah.
Psychosis.
And I thought, well, like, fear of death is like one of the biggest things, like, underlying this. And then you realize, yeah, actually, I'm not going to die. After enough times on the roller coaster, I was like, wait a second, I'm just going to come back. And so there's kind of this, like, within the fear of that, there's also like, oh, I get to do it again. I get to live life and continue my dreams again, and like to continue this essence.
That's
yeah,
a nice way
and
to say.
it started to change. And I was like, oh, I get it. Like, life is eternal. I don't actually die. And this entire time I've been on this roller coaster, which is the same ride every time, and I keep thinking I'm going to die but I'm not. And it's just like it was such a bizarre, paradoxical sort of moment. I was in at a camp. The camp was like fear of death as well. Everything, the entire thing was about like 5 or 6 hours, I reckon, of visuals of just about the fear of death. And I came out of that like thinking like, well, that is the biggest thing. And so like when you have reincarnation as a belief, that changes your relationship to life as well, because you still fear death. I think everyone does at some level. Like, it's not like I'm not afraid of it at all. I still love who I am and what I'm doing, but there's also like there's this like seed of potential that you're like, oh, it's like to come back again, do this again, sort of thing, continue my work or continue life, and to continue exploring. And so I think with that mindset, it kind of just enables you to actually act in the world as opposed to being afraid of the world, and also feeling the anxiety and pressure of like, I only have this like 50 years, if that, if not more, to make something happen. And so then we actually create really faulty things. And like even our buildings now, everything is really faulty. It's so short term. It doesn't
not like
last
the old days.
And it's the same thing with yourself. It's like if you actually believe that you're eternal, then you'd probably spend more time actually laying a better foundation for yourself and for your life and for others and your community and your work and everything like that as well. So just an interesting shift there that I found.
Totally. Like everything, once you change your belief, I've actually aimed to get rid of every belief besides anything as possible, because every belief is a construct of the illusion. Ultimately, you don't need belief when you know. So to trust the intuition and to know, this eternalness of everything, you just want to live really gloriously in the moment, with your feelings, with what you're saying and doing. And you want to have connection. You want to have connection with the tree, with the weather today, with the person. Everything becomes heightened. It's really lovely. And I do, in terms of hierarchy or moving and ascending, I like the idea of the 0 point implosion more than hierarchy or ascending, because ascending makes it sound like, well, one day I'm going to, be an ascended master or something. Ultimately, the more we go within, the more we implode, and the more we really feel deeper and we are more present. And that 0 point is really strong. It's just you're going deeper rather than higher. And so for me, if I was to give like a summary of what this whole experience of life is we are getting the chance to be the creator, be spirit, to go, okay, so how can I reach more and more heightened levels of great energy, really, because that then benefits everything around me. And so we'll hear lots of that. The one thing that could be negative is there will be those who are still self-serving, jumping on the bandwagon of spirituality, saying, follow me, follow me, follow me, which is what a lot of self-serving self people do. here's some amazing spiritual thing. I'm a channeler. I've got these great ideas. Ultimately, then we still got to go back to, what does it feel like? How does that feel for me? Am I feeling like I'm becoming freer and freer, or am I starting to go into someone else or some other construct? So the ultimate is to attain being an ascended master, because you're master of your own life. You're having amazing experiences, and the weird thing about it is that through history, you've read all the ancient scriptures and things. There's been a very small percentage of people who have attained this amazing sense, even through the horriblest of times, and they are positively impactful. And I want to be one of those people. So I want to, if there's some really horrible things going on, to be the one that can go and help that child, or to give light to someone who's about to do something real bad. Like those are the heightened skill sets that we can have to help no matter what's going on around us. So an optimistic thing that I have is that we're not like in the past, where there'll be a small percentage of people who attain this degree of joy and love. It's like we're all potentially able to move forward, and there's a lot of people who have been committed. They call them star seeds. There's 144,000 people on the planet super committed. There's been some statistics from channeling of over 1 million Lemurians or moon beings who are here now just helping. There's just, I call it like good news. There's a lot of good news saying we're not just going to go by ourselves. I remember from a young age, I was like, I don't want to just enlighten myself and leave people. I went to church when I was a little girl, and they said, anyone who doesn't believe in Christ will go to hell. And my mum wasn't a Christian. I'd been invited to church by a friend. I think I was about 8, and I said, well, I'd rather go to hell with my mum than hang out here with you. And I just left. I mean, that was a staunchness of myself from a young age. So what that means is I don't want to go and become enlightened and watch lots of people die and suffer. I want to use my superpowers with this love and light, so that it just naturally has a positive impact on people around me who will step into their love and light. And then more and more, it'll be like a rippling effect, and nothing will stop it. The only thing that's keeping the old world upright is the ignorance, the illusion, and the fear, and the guilt and shame, and the lack of listening to one's intuition. So it's pretty exciting.
It's an exciting time. And that's why I think it is the most exciting time. There's a lot of
and I wish people could just feel how I'm living right now, My life is so friggin' awesome. I have my moments, like I have full-on stuff going on, but that's for a good reason.
Yeah.
But it's possible to live in parallel with a really chaotic world while you're having this blissful, magical time.
100%. You can still, and that's the point, I guess. Like that's why I named it Human Spirit. It wasn't originally called Human Spirit. It was called Personal Evolution, because I thought like everything evolves, and it's about like human potential evolving towards that. And it just never sat right. And I was like, Human Spirit, because it's the reverse. It's actually the one thing that it evolves, but it's not changing. It's like it's in everyone. And it's that like, even though the world around you is fast paced, everything's changing and everything feels like it's crazy, it's like there is that 0 point within you that you can like tap into. And it doesn't mean that you don't feel sad, you don't feel grief, you don't feel, it's just like you just know that everything's gonna be okay and everything's beautiful, even though it's sad. Like even sadness, it has that kind of like awe aspect to it. I think that's really what the point of this is, and the point of like a lot of these practices are to help people find that within themselves. But I think that's what we're missing. It's that knowing and intuitions, that like you said. And then I think it was Carl Jung. Someone asked him a question. It was one of the last interviews he had. I was like, "Oh, do you believe in God?" And he just laughed and said, "No, I know God." And then like it's viral. It was crazy. What do you mean you know it was God, sort of thing. But it is that. It's a different feeling to when you believe something or know something. And saying you know something is kind of weird. You say that out loud to people. It's like, I know that.
So much limitation, self-worth. People have the biggest belief is lack of self-worth.
Yeah.
It just keeps, what is it, tall poppy syndrome, and it makes people just jeopardize themselves just when they're succeeding because they don't think they're worthy of it. I mean, that is just another one that needs to be
that is the worst.
So I've been playing lately, 6 months, I've been playing with saying out loud, I am creator. And when I first said it, it was like, oh, I'm such an arrogant person, you know. But funnily enough, it makes you humbler because you start going, whoa, okay, so if I created all of this, you know, you want to have more reverence and love for it. Like when you give birth to a child, as a mother, I'm a creator of my children, but I don't control them and I don't make them do things. You know, I actually revere them and I love them. That's what a creator is. And so if we could have that as our essence, we will respect and love the earth and the universe and animals, and we wouldn't want to control. We wouldn't, you know, like if you went into that and really felt it, you wouldn't want to do all the things that we're hearing. And so that narrative that the creator or God puts fear in everybody and is nasty and horrible and, you know, all of that. Like, I mean, there's absolute free will to go and become Lucifer or to become an angel, you know, free will. But ultimately, it's not fun being Lucifer. Lots of suffering going on. Like, why would you do it? Like, it's just, you know, we can just shift and start taking more of a sense of how amazing every one of us is. And that's when we'll be more respectful of others, because instead of going, oh, you stupid idiot, we'll be going, whoa, you're like the creator. I better be a bit, you know, reverent and respectful of you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think we'll probably wrap things up. Yeah, because I'd love to continue. And there are a couple of things I didn't want to ask you before we do wrap things up. Because you mentioned human potential a few times. And I find that very interesting myself. And so is there like maybe 3 tips that you might want to share with the audience and people listening about human potential, like how they could, you know, improve theirs, or what you maybe found most interesting about human potential, what you've learned, and some final notes.
Oh, it's pretty hard to do.
It's a tough one to start with, but I thought you could do it.
Well, for me, I to be honest, that I still work in business and I see and observe, and I feel like a lot of stuff is just really not effective. You know why? Because people are in their head, and they are in their head, and they just create drama, they create confusion, they create complexity, and I just sit back and observe, because I'm not here to tell them to change, but I'm, you know, trying to encourage change. But it's like that world isn't fully ready to get out of their head. So if people could get out of their head into their heart, do some meditations around that, really start coming from that, they would be so powerful. Like, they would have a different way that they approach people. They would set themselves up prior to having a meeting or an engagement with, you know, the next thing they're going to do in their job or life. They would, you know, have an amazing impact with their children. Anyway, all I'm saying is get out of the head into the heart. That's probably the biggest one. I mean, nature will help us know our true nature. So the truest human potential isn't the robotic one that we've seen. It's as natural as possible. Feeling comfortable to do that and go there. And then ultimately, heightening the intuition, starting to listen to it more, noticing what feels really good. Going back to feelings, if you feel fear, then you're stuck down in the lower emotions. But what feels really exciting, if you use that as a gauge, you make some really good decisions on the type of relationship you have, the type of job you go for. And remember, there's always interim, so potential can come from going, okay, well, I'll do this for now, but I know, you know, my potential is somewhere, and I'm just going to keep going for it. I think that was 4.
Yeah, get an extra one. I think that's a good way to end things too. Like, this was one of my favorite. I always watch kids animation shows because I think there's a lot of like messaging in them, and one of the best messages I got from the show was it was very science based, but it wasn't really at the same time. It was throughout the theme of the show there was something called equivalent exchange, which is a scientific term. Like, you know, if I give you something and you return something back, or like if I push something and pushes back, there's like this equivalent exchange of energy. And then it ends the show with equivalent exchange plus 1 as the equation to solve the world's problems. And so if I did something for you, you do something for me, but plus 1 extra. And then I do something else, plus 1 extra. And it's just this ripple effect of like love and gratitude to someone. And having that embedded in culture as opposed to just even equality. Yeah. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, I like that.
So
many gems.
You gave me one extra thing that I asked for. So that's how that came up.
Thank
awesome.
you.
Well, thanks, Kirsten. Thanks for jumping on, and thanks everyone for listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Beautiful.
Wow. That was
it.
it.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to today's episode and for tuning into my podcast. From the bottom of my heart, your support truly means the world to me. If you enjoyed today's episode, if it sparked a new idea, connected you to the world, or simply gave you a greater sense of happiness, I have a small favor to ask. It would absolutely make my day if you could share this podcast with someone you care about, whether it's a friend, a family member, or a colleague. Simply send them a quick text with a link to the episode. Introducing them into something that you enjoyed would really, really help me and help the show out. So once again, thank you for your continued support and for being part of this journey with me. Until next time, take care and keep spreading those good vibes. And I'll see you in the next episode.